Good afternoon and welcome to Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network. Wednesday, January 24th, Frank Granito in studio, joined by our director Steve Guttman today, and we'll also be joined by a special guest very shortly as we have some big breaking news out of the FCIAC this afternoon. We'll get right to it. Don't want to waste any time here. We've just learned that the fourth coach in the history of Trumbull High School football has been named, and it is the alumni Mark Petruccio, the former Staples coach, leaving the Wreckers position to take this job at his alma mater after winning 3 state championships and 5 FCIAC championships in over 240 games in his tenure with the Wreckers. It'll be just the second head coaching position Coach Petruccio has taken, and we're going to dive right into this. For more on this story now, we're happy to welcome an HAN Network football insider, John Kovach. John, thanks for taking time with us today, and let's get right to it. Your initial thoughts after hearing the news of the new coach at Trumbull High.
I think it's an answer that was hiding in plain sight that really we should have seen coming because Coach Petruccio is a Trumbull High graduate, and because we commented during Trumbull games Staples games, the past couple of years, their numbers seem to be down. They've had some struggles, and maybe this is just a breath of new life into both Coach Petruccio and his alma mater, Trumbull High.
And it's a job that Coach Petruccio has always said, I will never leave Staples with the exception of one job, and this is that job. Now, my question for you, John, is what is waiting for Trumbull, or what is waiting at Trumbull for Coach Petruccio, other than his alma mater, that he didn't have with him at Staples High?
The opportunity to make his alma mater a winning school again, and that's a big deal to him. And then for Trumbull, what they get out of it is they get a coach who's a proven winner, 3 state titles, and just look at this. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, John. I'm still listening. I'm sorry.
And they get a coach with a pedigree that has Jerry McDougal coached him in high school. He played for Kevin Gilbride. He was an assistant under Paul Pasqualoni. He was a defensive coordinator under Steve Adazio, now the head coach at Boston College. I mean, you've got a guy who certainly has his coaching chops.
There's no denying how good of a coach Coach Petruccio has been. And we've been talking about this now for about half an hour. And I feel like I'm in the minority on this. And I don't know that this is a step forward for Trumbull as much as it is a sideways step. You're talking about a coach who's been in the middle of the pack in the FCIAC for the past couple of years. You're bringing him home to his alma mater, but I've been on record as saying, John, I really believe the movement that needs to be going on in the FCIAC is a new wave movement. You need to reinvigorate a lot of these programs. So there's going to be a lot of work cut out for Coach Petruccio, who's now inheriting a 3-7 Trumbull team that, to say the least, has underachieved the past few years.
He gets a lot back from that team, and talking to some of those assistants, even during the season, they were excited already looking forward to next year. Now, I don't know how much of that staff he keeps intact. I don't know, how much of a system change he's going to put in. But I think there certainly was already some thoughts that this was a down year. They had their problems, but they were going to take their lumps, come back with a year of experience, and be that much better in 2018.
Well, a big piece of them being that much better in 2018 will be the staff that has to be put in place now. You have to wonder if any of the former staff will be invited to stay on, who from Staples might be willing to follow along as well. And now there's going to be a huge question amongst the Wreckers program as who's going to be the next head coach at Staples. A lot of early indications that the offense coordinator, Bruno, will be an early leading candidate. But, John, if this isn't a quick fix for Trumbull, and let's say it takes Coach Petruccio a couple of years here, if Staples doesn't get someone right, you're talking about 2 of the premier programs in this league now possibly taking a big hit and a couple years of step back.
Possibly. You don't know how that's going to come out. You don't know that Staples won't be the program that goes in the direction that you're talking, that gets a younger coach who invigorates it and maybe gets the numbers back up there. And who knows? I mean, that could happen. It could go either way.
I just, we've coached in this conference. We've been around it for a long time. I just think we're at a point in time now where the example, and this is a copycat world, obviously, the example people should be looking to right now is what's going on down in Greenwich. And you've got a new first-time head coach in John Marinelli who's taken this program and quickly revitalized it. You think about when coaches like Lou Marinelli, Marsh Petruccio, Rob Trifone, Richie Albanese, when they first took over these big-name programs 15, 20, 25, 30 years ago, how quickly they transformed it around. I don't think people are appreciating. Maybe we're at that point where that next generations of legends needs to get their start.
I think you're close to it, but I think that what trumps everything in this equation is that Marsh Petruccio is a Trumbull High School graduate who played under arguably their most legendary coach, one of the most legendary coaches in the state, Jerry McDougal. He's going to come back. He is going to feel like he's on a mission to return Trumbull to its former glory. I think that trumps a lot. That carries a lot of weight to go back to your alma mater. I've watched in different states, guys go back, take over the school that they graduated from, and those guys feel a drive to bring that program back to where it was. And I think that's a big factor in this.
And obviously Marsh was a senior on Coach Petruccio's first state title team back in 1977. They were the #1 ranked team in the New Haven poll that year, #1 in New England, and they were ranked nationally as well. And you hear Coach Petruccio talk about Coach McDougal and the impact he had on him, the influence he had on him, and his ability to get the best out of his players. You understand how much this program does mean to Marcy and to those former alumni. So I will agree there that a big part of inheriting this job and Mike King's selection process has got to be in getting the athletes, the residents, the community, all of Trumbull to really buy in and appreciate the meaning of Trumbull High football again.
And I also think what this does for Trumbull High, Coach Petruccio is what, the third coach, fourth coach in the history of the program?
Fourth coach in the history of the program.
So and now you go back, you're still under that same coaching trait. You're bringing back a guy who was coached by really a legend. And I mean, Bobby Maffei leaves big shoes to fill. I think we both will agree to that.
I 100% agree, yep.
This is a big hire.
It is, and I'm not a part of the Trumbull Selection Committee. I'm not going to sit here and say what is right or wrong. I have some reservations and some hesitancy to this move. When you talk about a selection process that had upwards of 40 candidates, I believe was the number that they said, John. And for me, it's just one of those things that, maybe this was that opportunity to go another way and totally rebuild what you're trying to do with Trumbull football.
You're entirely right about that. However, how many of those 40 candidates have 3 state titles and graduated from your high school?
And you know what? Numbers never lie. You're right. 5 FCIAC championships to go along with it as well. He is a very well known, he's a very well respected, and clearly a great coach amongst the FCIACs. And now he has got his next challenge lying ahead of him, and it's going to be a big one as he looks to bring back his alma mater and the Trumbull High football program from the depths of the FCIAC, a place they are very unfamiliar with.
Keep in mind, Frank, too, because I was still a sports writer when Marsh Petruccio was hired at Staples High School, so I can let everybody figure out just how old I am. But I did the stories when he got hired. I covered those early games with him at Staples, and he inherited a Staples team that was really, if not the bottom rung, really close to it in the FCIAC and built it to what it became. So he's used to taking over a program. He's taken over a program that struggled and built it into a power. He has that experience as well.
Well, expectations will certainly be high, and I can tell you right now that it is going to be a very difficult start for Coach Petruccio. He's going to pick up right where he left off, John. He takes on the Greenwich Cardinals from Cardinal Stadium in Week 1 next year.
Interesting matchup.
It is a matchup he knows very, very well, too. John,
don't get me talking next fall's matchup, or I'll do it all day.
I know you will. Well, John, I really appreciate you taking time with us this afternoon. Just quickly before we let you go, we've got a big matchup coming up tonight on the HAN network. You and I will be on the call. We've got number 1 and number 2 in the conference, New Canaan and Darien girls hockey. Round 1 this season, going to the Rams. It was their first win after Darien had won 10 straight against New Canaan. What are your thoughts heading into this second matchup this year?
How often do you have a team that won 10 straight against their arch rival looking for revenge? I think this is going to be a great matchup.
It's two very, very talented teams, both teams playing at the top of the conference, top of the state, playing at the top of their games right now. You've got a lot of impact players on both rosters, both veteran and rookie. I think we're going to see great hockey tonight. It's our first look at both of these teams this season. It should be a lot of fun.
Can't wait.
All right, John, thanks again for taking time with us. We'll catch up with you later on today.
Talk to you tonight. See ya.
That was John Kovach, our HAN football insider. Again, huge news out of the FCIAC conference as Marsh Petruccio named the 4th head coach in Trumbull High School history for the football program. We're going to take a break on Nutmeg Sports. When we get back, Steve Guttman will join me. Maybe we'll let the former Trumbull alum himself offer some insight on his thoughts to the new hiring. That's next on the HAN Network.
Well, there's still a bite out on the water. Most anglers have decided to stow the gear for the winter. Just because Mother Nature isn't cooperating doesn't mean you can't see the latest models of all your favorite gear. With 2 convenient locations, it couldn't be easier to get your fix of summer. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, or on the web, dockshop.com.
At Rings End, we say it's time to re-love your home. Time to refresh and reinvigorate the way you live. And whether you're redoing something big or small, remember the letters RE stand for Rings End. We're the new model in home remodeling.
At Budget Blinds, we're in business to frame the light, the day, and the night. So we give you an exclusive combination of high style, expert service, our no surprises pricing, and our no questions asked warranty. We believe that everyone, at every budget, deserves style and service. Isn't that a beautiful place to be?
Get a fresh start to the new year by shaking up your meal routine. Walter Stewart's Market is your local source for a delicious selection of fresh and convenient salad shakers, like Southwest salad with chicken, Cobb with organic chicken, Power Vegan with fruit and quinoa, Greek salad with tabbouleh, and grilled shrimp with hominy. Grab one from our salad case or order from our deli today. Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street, New Canaan, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
Welcome back to Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network. Frank Granito in studio this afternoon. It is January 24th, Wednesday, as we get ready for our coverage of tonight's big matchup in the FCIAC girls hockey. New Canaan and Darien, number 1 and number 2 in the conference. Happy to welcome in our director, Steve Guttman. And Steve, first things first, you are a former Trumbull Eagle yourself.
Right,
what are
Frank.
your first thoughts on this hiring?
Well, you know what? This is a town that really prides itself on football. I know that going back over the years, this is, it's one of the sports that we really look forward to every year. So going through a tough year like we just came off of this year, I think the new hire might have been the right time. But this is a team that's issues kind of stretch on and off the field, and I think you want to bring in someone. I don't know if Petruccio is the right guy. We have yet to see that, obviously, who can kind of clean up the culture here. It's something that affected the team on and off the field this past season, and we're going to see how he changes the culture this season.
And you're right. We're obviously talking about a program that the past 2 years has had very high expectations heading into the season, then just sort of struggling against the top teams in the conference. Obviously, in 2016, you get that big win on Thanksgiving against St. Joe's, but then you come around this year, there is the beatdown week number 1. I think it was 3 times you surrendered over 60 points this season, including a 55-0 deficit at halftime to St. Joe's. So there's no wrong hire at this moment in time. It was just a program in turmoil, and there was a change that needed to be made. You bring back a legend and someone who understands how good this program can be. But, yeah, I think there is still some uncertainty surrounding the decision and seeing, what happens next for Trumbull football.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this, it's not something that you want to take a long time. You want a guy to come in right away and kind of put this team on his back and set the path kind of in the right direction.
All right, well, let's move ahead here. We're going to look back at some of the games from last night around the conference, some big ones in action. Let's start with boys basketball here. One game I want to go with, a real tight one down in Darien. Wilton 53, Darien 51. This is a big win for the Warriors, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're coming off a game. They, really just light up the gym on them. You want them to bounce back quick, and they do that here. So that's going to be important for them in the standings going forward. I think we have those here. Let me see if I grab them for you. But again, this is the halfway point of the year. Close to it, if not. So you're going to start to see how these teams come together towards the playoff race and the push.
It was a real interesting game. You had a lot of runs in this game. Darien started the game with a 10-4 run. Wilton would go on a 12-0 run to end the first quarter. No 3 points more exciting in this game than Scott Cunningham's finish to the first quarter. Steve, let's take a look at that now as the young man connected from almost half court here.
Oh, here we go.
So clearly a top play nominee right there. Awesome stuff from the young man. And it was a big shot too. Momentum for Wilton heading into the second quarter. They'd come out on a 7-0 run early in the second quarter, finish with a 7-2 run before the half, and then they start the fourth quarter on an 8-4 run. Darien kept this game close for the majority of the play, Steve, but it was just these times where Wilton could pick up an extra 5 points, an extra 7 points that prevented Darien from being able to come back, even with a 13-2 Darien run late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of go on these runs, and Darien keeps thinking they're going to creep back into it, and they never can. Wilton putting them away, and the three-pointer like that, the points at the end of a quarter or a period, if it's hockey, those are daggers. You go into the break, and you almost have this new feeling like you're losing even worse. So you can speak to that better than I, but those hurt more than you think.
All right, so we look at the scoring in that game. Kyle Matala led all scorers. He had 15 points. Matt Cronenberg with 11. And then you had Scott Cunningham with a big 10. Darien's Henry Williams finished with 17. So it's a tough loss for Darien. They'll slip a little bit in the standings, and now they've really got to buckle down here. Wilton, we talked about it. A big 5-game stretch coming up. They've got to find a way to get at least 3 of them. They get one there. Friday is going to be another big matchup when they host Bridgeport Central. And this is Central team that put conference leading Ridgefield on the ropes last night. Ridgefield has now won 15 straight conference games, Steve, and they're doing it without getting nearly enough recognition or credit that they deserve for how well they're playing.
Yeah, and it's, I guess it's really surprising. Kevin around, you'd think he'd give us enough recognition for the whole season, but this team plays night in and night out with a passion that you won't see out of everyone in the conference. There's really a fire on the court, and 8-0 in the FCIAC. They're playing a really strong game right now. They're going to be someone to look out for moving forward in the FCIAC and state tournament as well. And
of course, it's a team that lost a lot from last year, and we were unsure. Okay, who's going to step up, fill these roles? How are you going to replace some of the big guys like Ladowdy, like Longo? They had 5 players scoring in double figures last night, including Mitchell on his birthday going for 17, along with Brennan McNamara, who has just continued to develop game in and game out, his maturity, his leadership, and his overall play as a basketball player.
Yeah, that's something that you look forward to, like the maturing, and you definitely want these guys to step up in that big moment. But you're gonna need that down the stretch here. We saw them against Danbury. He goes off. I can't remember how many he scored, obviously, off the top of my head. But this is a team that is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Obviously, Ward looking good, and I think, let's see, Trinity, who we just saw, is going to have to figure some of their own issues out. But Richfield has looked good throughout the entire season so far, so we'll see probably good things to come from them.
They were the best team in the conference last year, and they'll continue to maintain that title until someone knocks them off. Really, they pulled away in this game. It was a one-possession game for nearly 3 quarters of play. A big 11-0 run before the end of the third quarter by Ridgefield. And then there was another one. After Central clawed back, regained a 2-point lead, another 11-0 run with just 4 minutes left in the game that put Ridgefield ahead for good. For Central, they're playing really good basketball. DJ Fulton, in my opinion, is going to be a first-team all-conference player. He had 19 points last night. Zach William came up with 17. Central has already won twice as many games this season as they have over the past 2 years combined. So we've talked a lot about this being a playoff team. Central's going to learn a lot about themselves the next couple of weeks as they start to play the top 6, 7, 8 schools in the conference. But they're doing a lot of things right. It's a high-pressure defense. They put a lot of stress on you, force you to make bad decisions, and they convert a lot of points off of turnovers, Steve.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? I mean, they really flipped around the story of their last few years this season. They have big players taking the control, really, of this season, and that they're going to be a force, I think, down the stretch here. You really are going to see a lot. I think we're going to get one of their games before the end of the season, and you kind of forget about them. They're kind of not necessarily the biggest team in the FCIAC, but they can hold their own certainly in basketball, and they're going to see a lot of big things out of them this year.
You talked about some big games coming up, and you talked about how well Ward is playing. Fairfield Ward took on New Canaan last night. It was a pretty relatively easy victory for the Mustangs, 67-47. But the big story, again, is the early player of the year candidate, Sean Conway, going for 35 points. Young man just does it all. Last night they needed him to step up as a scorer. He did so. They're getting ready for a matchup with Danbury on Friday. And it's a Danbury team who just saw Jordan Brown go for 35 in their victory last night against Brien McMahon. I think you've got 2 of the best teams in the conference who are squaring off on Friday from Danbury. Difficult place for Fairfield Ward to play, and there are going to be a lot of intriguing matchups across the floor in that game.
To be honest with you, Frank, I like Ward in this one. We just saw them last week. I just mentioned between Conway and then you have Houghton off the bench. Those two putting up 15 threes a game. This kid was lights out. He puts 24 points in off 3-pointers. That's 8. And Conway, he can't stop scoring. I don't know who's guarding him. Danbury's gonna have their work cut out for them Friday for sure.
That'll be a great one for sure. Girls basketball last night, meeting of number 2 and number 3 in the conference. The Norwalk Lady Bears are legit. They defeat Staples 64-47, continuing to play so well is Norwalk. They outscored Staples in the second half, 25-12 in the third quarter, 16-8 in the fourth quarter. We're going to have the Norwalk captains on Nutmeg Sports next week to talk more about this season. But, you know, we've seen Staples play already this year, and we've talked about how good that they can be. Norwalk is legit. I think they're going to challenge Trumbull. We're going to have that matchup at the end of the season, which potentially could be for the #1 seed in the conference. It's going to be a lot of fun. Asia Vega, Nave Renee, and then you add in as well the play of Ashley Wilson. There's just so many things working for the Bears right now. And maybe I'm late to the table, but I'm 100% a believer.
Yeah, I didn't see the Norwalk Lady Bears coming out this season really being a front runner, but you see them play against the Eagles, and that's gonna be a really game to look out for. We're gonna have that here on the HAN Network, and I think you're gonna have a good matchup. Trumbull's played well this year, but Norwalk I think is gonna give them a run for their money.
That'll definitely be a lot of fun. We got to take one more break on Nutmeg Sports. When we get back, Steve's got a couple of hot topics we're going to touch upon, and we'll get you ready. A little more inside detail for tonight's big matchup, New Canaan and Darien girls hockey on the HAN Network. But that's next on Nutmeg Sports after this.
Voted Best Gourmet to Go in Fairfield County, Palmer's extensive menu offers everything you'll need to make your next event easy and delicious. Whether you're hosting a small get-together or planning a large celebration, they've got you covered breakfast through dessert. Order online at palmersdarien.com or call 203-655-2077.
Yeah, Dad.
Kyle, I need you to update the financial statements.
I took care of that yesterday, Dad.
Mac, I need you to get those deals approved.
They're all done, Mr. Miller.
Jeff, I need you to order lunch for the meeting. They can't do a thing without me.
Right now, lease a 2017 Sentra S for only $97 a month.
I'm never going to retire.
UK Gourmet is the largest specialty grocer in the area, featuring food from England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Over 80 teas to choose from and a brilliant assortment of biscuits to go with them. Over 70 cheeses from grass-fed cows, which makes a smashing difference in taste. The creamiest chocolate you'll ever taste using no artificial colors or preservatives. So say hooray for UK Gourmet, 78 Stony Hill Road in Bethel, or visit ukgourmet.us.
Dr. Stephen Molinaro and Peter Healy of Family Practice Dentistry and Laser Dental Care have served Ridgefield for over 22 years. Experienced staff offer gentle drillless techniques, preventative care, and cosmetic procedures in a relaxed environment. Grateful for the community's trust and support through the years, new patients and their families are welcome. Call today. Welcome back to Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network. Frank Granito alongside Steve Guttman in studio this afternoon. We're going through some hot topics around the FCIAC right now. Steve, you may fire when ready, my friend.
Well, Frank, we got definitely a couple of things coming out of the FCIAC today. After the hiring of the new football coach at Trumbull, other things of note, Brien McMahon, athletic director, Joe Manafori was nominated for athletic director of the year nationally. He's been he's been athletic director at Brien McMahon for 22 years, and he will be named the Connecticut athletic director of the year in May of this year. So how does Joe help out at Brien McMahon in, like, what is this? How does he separate himself, I guess, go above and beyond the call of duty as an athletic director?
Well, it's, you know, first of all, congratulations again to Mr. Manafari. I mean, you're talking about a guy who, it's not just the work that he has done as the athletic director at Brien McMahon, but it's what he's done all around Connecticut. He is one of the closest reputations, most hands-on athletic directors when it comes to the FCIAC personally, as well as the state. You know, he is now serving as the assistant commissioner in the FCIAC. He's been at McMahon, I believe, for 25 years is the number. He has served as president for several of these sporting councils, and he's a guy who so many of the athletic directors, and I can speak to as well personally, when you need something and you reach out, Joe will always answer the phone. He will always take care of it right away, and he'll always make sure that your best interest is his best interest. He is doing this, and he got into public service, he says, because of the opportunities that were available to him because of the Norwalk schooling system. He's a former standout football and baseball player from Norwalk High. He's coached at Brien McMahon, coached at Stanford High. He's now the athletic director at McMahon, and he's just, there is not a more deserving man in the conference right now that deserves this honor. Obviously, he'll be the third FCIAC AD in the past, I think it is 6 or 7 years, to be recognized for this honor. The latter being Chip Salvestrini of Danbury, and the now commissioner and former Ludlow athletic director Dave Schultz. But Joe is a class act, to say the least. He is a very special guy amongst the population in the FCIAC, and we are very, very lucky to have him, and we hope that the National High School Athletic Directors Foundation will recognize his greatness.
Yeah, once again, congratulations, Joe Mataforey, one of the good guys in the FCIAC. We definitely see the playoff race shaping up in boys basketball. Ridgefield, Danbury, Trinity, and Ward sitting at the top of the standings. We've seen each of these teams so far this season. So, who do you think where do we end up? A month from now, where the standings shape up, and who takes the FCIAC title?
I think your regular season champion in the FCIAC will be the Ridgefield Tigers. They obviously have got to get through Ward and Wilton still on their schedule, but already survived Danbury, already survived Trinity. They will be able to handle Trumbull, in my opinion. So regular season, I think we see Ridgefield end up as number 1. I'm not 100% convinced, or as confident, I should say, that they're your FCIAC champion. Here's why. 1, if we see a Ward team play a game like they played against Wilton the other night, a lot of teams are going to struggle containing them. With everything that Sean Conway can do defensively, rebounding-wise, and if you get depth scoring across your bench, that's a really, really good Ward team. Trinity, I think, is still the biggest matchup problem for any team in the conference with their size and ability down low. But the big knock on the Crusaders has been their inconsistency. So I struggle getting on board there. And again, I said this to Kevin yesterday, Danbury to me is just a different motivated team now than they were after that Ridgefield loss. I think that was a real eye-opening moment. That was a real low for this group, and they don't want any part of feeling like that again. So I think that Danbury is another team very, very capable of going on a big run, and they've got the ability to handle schools like Trinity with their size and can battle it out with Ridgefield as well. Remember now, Danbury's only loss is at Ridgefield. That's a tough place to play when you got to go to the Tigers Den. FCIAC tournament's going to be all neutral sites. So I think the top 4 teams right now are the 4 teams that are best positioned for a run. But the beauty of this tournament, the beauty of this conference, if you get in, you've got a chance to win it all.
Yeah, exactly. At that point, you're just you're playing to stay in it. It's some teams get in with that last seed, and it's almost house money. Let's see. I'm looking. So tonight we have New Canaan, Darien girls hockey from the Ice House down in Darien. We saw these. We haven't seen these two teams since the tour. Both said they were looking forward to each other. So New Canaan and Darien sit atop their standings. What are we looking for tonight? Matchups, and how does this kind of show us what we're going to see out of the girls' standings out of the season?
I think the most interesting part of this matchup tonight is that for the first time in almost 3 years, actually in almost 4 years, excuse me, we are seeing a New Canaan team coming in having last defeated Darien and how Darien bounces back after a loss. 10 straight games in this rivalry, including 2 FCIAC championships, Darien won the head-to-head matchup between these two schools. That's crazy to think about with how talented these two programs are. And with the classes that went through the two high schools in that time period. You're talking about New Canaan teams that had Olivia Homp, Mia Carroll, Catherine Granito, Sammy Stewart. So there were really big names coming through this New Canaan program that couldn't seem to get over that hump. Now you've got a New Canaan program that is absolutely thriving again, looking like the 6-time FCIAC championship program, looking like they're a #1 contender in the state. You've got Gianna Bruno, Brooke Dean, Jess Eccleston, Little O'Connell. They're all tearing it up on the ice right now. How do they continue to ride this momentum? All right, they had a tough loss against Greenwich a couple of weeks ago, but they've now climbed over that hump that is Darien. How do they sustain that sort of mental edge? And on the other side, there's no better coach in girls hockey. And in my opinion, back when he was in boys hockey, I don't know that there was a better strategy coach than Jamie Tropsa. He will have his girls ready for this matchup. He will put his players in the position to be successful. He'll have the right matchups on the ice. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight, and I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm leaning Darien.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't
so
tell Kevin.
Your New Canaan alum goes against his former school, and I think that's just about all the time we have today.
Yeah,
Frank,
that
send this one out of here before you get too much trouble.
That might be all the time we've got. Steve, good job today. Want to thank John Kovach again for coming on. John and I will be on the air tonight at 6:55 from the Darien Ice House, #1, #2 in the conference. You can see it live here on the HAN Network. Kevin Coleman will be back tomorrow, and we're here in studio 2 o'clock for Nutmeg Sports on the home of FCX Sports, the HAN Network.